Arizona was one of the surprise teams in the Pac-12 last season, but how about in 2024 as they transition to the Big 12? Well, we're going to give you a game-by-game prediction here in this video. First, just some thoughts on this Arizona team. It's an Arizona team that coming off of last season, at the end of last season, I really had this team as the best team in the Big 12 in 2024, projecting ahead. But you look at the coaching change, you look at all the losses in the transfer portal, and then when you really dive into this roster, I'm not quite as high on this Arizona team. And I think a lot of people are really high on them, and maybe you're right, maybe I'm wrong. But when I look at this roster, yes, you see Noah Fifita at quarterback, really, really good player. You look at McMillan back at wide receiver. That's kind of the story. They have these really good players, these great players, but they don't have the depth. They don't have those B-type players. They've got several really good players, and then everyone else is just kind of average. So you look at the running back room, very average. And again, around McMillan at wide receiver, there's just not much proven production on this team. Offensive line will be okay. I don't think they're going to be great. They've got one really good player coming back there, but everywhere else, it's average. And then you look at the defensive line, not very good. You look at the linebacker group. Now, I'm high on the linebackers. Jacob Manu is back, and he's maybe the best player on this defense. And they also have Justin Flo, really talented player. So linebackers are solid. And then it's kind of the same story at cornerback. You look at Takario Davis at corner, really, really good player, but there's really no one else besides him. And then you look at Treydan Stukes at safety, really, really good player, but there's not really one else. So that's kind of the story for this Arizona team, in my opinion. I think a lot of people see those really good players that are there, and you don't really dig into the entire roster and see that there's not a lot of depth on this team, and a big part of that, again, is because of the transfer portal. But let's go game by game now, and we'll do the predictions. They do get off to a good start, in my opinion, with New Mexico and Northern Arizona, a 2-0 start, as they then play. All right, so Kansas State's not a conference game. I know if you've watched the channel, you already know about all this, but there are several games in the Big 12 that are not conference games because they were scheduled before the conference realignment, and they left those games on the schedule, but they will not count towards the standings in the Big 12. Anyways, back to the game. Kansas State on the road, Friday night game, going to be a tough one. Kansas State's just an established program now with their head coach, with their players that have been there. Arizona, again, I think it's going to take a little bit of time for them to potentially be successful in the Big 12. So I think Kansas State playing at home is just the better team here. And again, they should be able to take care of this one. So definitely going Wildcats of Kansas State in this one, not the Wildcats of Arizona. They get a bye week before playing Utah on September 28th. This will be a road game. Back-to-back road games. Yeah, there's a bye week in between, but these are still two really tough places to play. And again, Utah is just a program that I think is going to be ahead of where Arizona is this year. You look at the line of scrimmage, Utah should dominate there, and I think this one goes the way of the Utes. So 2-2, then they get Texas Tech on October the 5th. I think these teams are pretty even. You look at this matchup, I think it's going to be a good one. It's one that I could probably say, it could probably go either way, but I think Arizona playing at home with Noah Fifita, he's going to make some plays, and they're going to win some close games because of him, and I think this might be one of them. So I've got Arizona beating Texas Tech. They play BYU the next week on October 12th on the road. I just don't think BYU, I've been saying this, I know some people maybe disagree, but I don't think BYU is going to be very good this year. Arizona should definitely be better, more talented team, more proven team, a lot more experience on this roster. I like Arizona to beat BYU. Then you've got Colorado on October 19th. This should be a really good game. A lot of points in this one. I expect a shootout for sure. There are some areas where I like Arizona's defense better, like linebacker. Again, I really like the linebackers at Arizona. I like the defensive line in the secondary for Colorado. But overall, I don't think either team has a complete defense. And so I do think we see a lot of points in this game. Back and forth shootout. And again, I think Noah Fifita, he's good enough that he's going to win this team some games, some close games. And I think this is one of them. So I think they beat Colorado, and that gets them to 5-2. And I said the things I said at the beginning about this team. I still think this is going to be a solid team. I just my point was I don't think they're going to be maybe a top 10, top 15 team like some people are predicting. But West Virginia is next here on October 26th. This is going to be a solid West Virginia team. This is going to be a tough one for Arizona to win. I like the linebackers, though, coming downhill, stopping that run game for West Virginia, which is what they're going to want to do. And then for Arizona, can their offense score enough here playing at home? This is a tough one. This is one I really went back and forth on, but I'm going Arizona. I think they get the win here over at West Virginia. The next week they play at UCF on the road November 2nd. That is a sneaky, tough place to play. UCF's got a tough crowd, and this is going to be a really good UCF offense. Just like with Colorado, I think this game will be a shootout, back and forth type game. But you like the UCF defense playing at home to make a few plays, and I think they do have a little bit of an edge. I think their defense will be a little bit better than Arizona's. The one area I'm concerned about UCF is their offensive line, but Arizona not going to have a great defensive line, so I don't think they really take advantage of that, and I think UCF is able to get this win. So a big one there for UCF. Tough loss for Arizona. They play Houston next. They get a bye week. Houston also gets a bye week, so it's not really an advantage here for Arizona. I just really like Willie Fritz coming in there at Houston. I think he's a great coach. I think they'll have the coaching advantage here. And even though it's a new coaching staff and all that, Houston, they didn't have as many losses in the transfer portal as Arizona, or at least with a lot of key players that they have. So I think this roster is pretty similar to Arizona's. I think it's a pretty even matchup here. You could say, okay, home team, go with Arizona, but I just think Willie Fritz will have his team ready to go. I'm going to give them the coaching advantage coming off of a bye week, and the depth for Arizona could be a problem. I talked about that. If they have a few injuries to key players, they could be in trouble down the stretch. So I'm going with Houston to pull off the upset here over Arizona. The next week is at TCU. This is still a talented roster for TCU. I know they had a very disappointing season last year. But TCU, again, if you look at their roster top to bottom, it's pretty good. They have some really good receivers, some experienced players on defense as well. I think these rosters are actually pretty even, and the game is at TCU. Probably a pretty high scoring game, but I'm going to go with the Horned Frogs. So 3 losses in a row there for Arizona, and like I said, depth could be an issue coming down the stretch here at the end of the season. They have almost no freshmen coming in this year because of the coaching change and all that. So again, I think that's going to be an issue for Arizona. Can they overcome that here late in the season and knock off Arizona State? This is a tough one. I think Arizona State's really underrated. This is a decent team. I like some areas of this team for Arizona State, but it's similar to Arizona in that they don't have the depth. They don't have deep groups at these different positions, and I think Arizona is still ahead of Arizona State. Plus, they're playing at home. Noah Fafita, great quarterback. They got the advantage at quarterback. I think Arizona State's underrated, but again, they're not really on Arizona's level. I think Arizona's a better team. Rivalry game could wind up being kind of close, but I got Arizona here getting this win and finishing 7-5. So yeah, I'm a little bit lower than I know a lot of people, but you look at this schedule, and some people will probably think maybe the Houston game, maybe that's a crazy prediction. Maybe Arizona's not going to lose that, or maybe UCF, whatever. But they could also lose to Colorado. They could lose to West Virginia. So I've given them some wins here in some tough games, and I think it's all going to come out to 7-5. So that's my prediction for the Wildcats of Arizona. What's your prediction? Give me your thoughts on this team down in the comments below.